Today, the annual March for Life brought more than 1,000 people to downtown Knoxville. Tennessee Right to Life started the event with a prayer and led the group on a march past a local clinic. Many marchers were there to protest abortion specifically. This comes after two Tennessee state lawmakers reintroduced a bill that would require fetal heartbeat testing prior to abortion. We caught up with advocates on both ends of the debate about this new legislation.
We march to make sure that our legislatures are aware of the support that there is for the right to life.
We have been building up our advocacy work to try and fight some of these harmful bills. We know that they directly affect our healthcare services.
It comes the same week new controversial legislation in New York provided more protection for abortions. You can read more about the meaning behind today's march and counter efforts across the country at WBIR.com and hear more locally on the Night Beat.